Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today we're going to talk about Bitcoin, and in the spirit of the halving that recently occurred, we're going to look to see what the fair valuation of Bitcoin would be at the next halving. So if you guys like the content, please subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it if you subscribe so I can get closer to 20,000 members. We're approaching that milestone. If you want to discuss these things in a community of almost 3,300 people, check out the Telegram chat room, which you can see up here. And if you want to join the premium list, check out intothecryptoverse.com. And we have about 40 more slots for the private Telegram chat room, which will be closing up soon. So if that's something that interests you, check it out. I'll talk more about it at the end of the video. Let's go ahead and jump in. So we've talked extensively about this. I did a live stream on the halving, and the general idea was the price of Bitcoin tends to go to its fair valuation at the halving. And of course, this logarithmic regression equation was, it's fit to 10 raised to the power a times the ln of x minus b, and this has been fit to somewhat discretionary non-bubble data, not data in these speculative bubbles that you see. So fit to non-bubble data all the way out to this point here. You can see that the price corresponded to the fair valuation pretty well in 2012. At around $13. So we can say, okay, the fair value at the first halving was around $13, and that's more or less what the price was. At the second halving, the fair value was around $650, and that's more or less what the price was. At the third halving, it's around 8,000, plus or minus a few hundred. What's a few hundred here among friends? It's around 8,000. On the website we were talking about, it looks like around 83 to 8,400, and the price of Bitcoin at the halving was 8,500. So it seems that by continually looking at this regression equation fit to the macro scale data of Bitcoin price, it gives us a somewhat realistic projection as to what the price will be at the halving. Now, the interesting thing about this is you have to remember that this model would have to be refit throughout each market cycle, because if you had only fit it to this data, of course it would have predicted a different curve. Fitting it to only say this data, a different curve as well. So, but ultimately it's converging to whatever that magical equation will be at the end. So far, I've only fitted up to this point. It has not included any data that went into this little smaller speculative bubble or any of this data as well. And yet we went right down. It looks like it went up. It went up to 10,000, and then it retraced right back down to the fair valuation of Bitcoin at the halving. Now, the interesting thing about this is, okay, well, let's say if we extend this, what does this look like for the fair valuation of Bitcoin at the fourth halving? Now, the fourth halving, it's hard to know exactly when it'll happen because it's so far away, and it's not based on time or anything. It's based on a certain amount of blocks. So it's probably going to happen sometime out here around the year 2024. If you look, you can see the first halving was at the end of 2012. The second halving was in the in like the late summer of 2016. The third halving was in May of 2020. So the next one, maybe it'll be, and I just drew it around 2024, maybe it'll be early 2024. But it's going to be somewhere around, this time frame. If we continue to follow this regression equation, which I imagine won't change too much if we were to refit it to say this data over here, or even data later on, then our fair valuation at the next halving would be around $40,000 to $50,000. And this is pretty much in line with seeing a continued move for the next several years, potentially, slowly moving up. Maybe we'll come back down to the bottom of the regression band, which would likely correspond to somewhere around the 200-week moving average. Doesn't have to happen, but be prepared if it does. Regardless, we'll likely move sideways for a long time, and eventually we'll get to our previous all-time high of around $20,000, which will likely happen in the regression band. It might not. I mean, I drew a potential scenario where we pop out to 20,000 outside of the regression band, but if you look at the last cycle, we got to $1,100, and then the next time we got to $1,100 was basically right at the exit of the regression band that then led into the speculative bubble. So if we continue on up, this, it's just monotonically increasing. It's not decreasing by any means because it just tends upwards. then we would get to a fair valuation of Bitcoin of, say, the previous all-time high of around $20,000 in early 2022. If that were the case, then this could ultimately fuel the next speculative bubble, going up to $100,000 to $200,000. I just pretty much randomly drew a line here, and it looks like I actually drew it to over 200,000. I don't actually think it'll go that high, but be prepared if it does. But regardless, if this were to happen by say 2023, in the middle of 2023, I would anticipate a retracement, back down to the regression band. And maybe this will be our retracement from, say, $100,000 to $150,000, maybe $200,000, back down to around $50,000 at the halving, which will then help curtail the effects of the bear market, instead of, again, as we've mentioned, being the catalyst for the next bull market. This will help bring us back into reality. Okay, our fair valuation is $40,000 to $50,000, and this is what we need to build off of for the next several years before we can make another run at 100K. So I know 40 to 50K might seem like an absolutely absurd price tag for Bitcoin for many of you, especially if you joined in, I'd say, the end of 2017, and all you've seen is the price of Bitcoin at a lower price than maybe what you bought a lot of your Bitcoin at. But if you just take a step back, look at the first halving, $13. Second halving, $650. Third halving, $8,000. The trend, as they say, is your friend. Making this jump from, $650 to $8,000 is an order of magnitude, and I'm not even suggesting we go up another order of magnitude between now and the next halving. In fact, this is only a 5x. Basically saying only a 5x is somewhat restricted to cryptocurrency, because 5x in most markets in that amount of time, without, say, leverage trading or something, is quite a decent return. But going up from, say, a fair valuation of $8,000 to $40,000 to $50,000 by 2024 seems like a likely scenario. Now, remember, this is not financial advice. I will be the first to admit that I could be wrong. This is just essentially, if the mathematics, if this continues the way it has been since inception of Bitcoin, which remains to be seen. But remember, if you choose to take the risk that comes with cryptocurrency, then if you are able to, realize a gain of, say, 10x or something, again, a lot of your friends will say, oh, you're so lucky, that you invested in Bitcoin. It's not luck. You took a calculated risk and it paid off, and that's what you tell them. It's not luck. I looked into Bitcoin. It seems like, this is where things are headed, at least in terms of, a store of value. And I made a calculated risk. It could have easily gone to zero. But instead, if a bull run occurs and we go up to 100,000 and you cash out on it, it was a calculated risk and it paid off. This is how you should think of it. And for those people who say, I don't want to hold Bitcoin, it's too risky, as I said in the video yesterday regarding Ethereum, there's also a risk associated to not holding Bitcoin. Because if you're not holding Bitcoin and you get left behind in terms of, and you see it take off, then all these other people are watching their investments grow, say, 5 or 10x, and you're left behind. So there is a risk associated with holding Bitcoin. There's also a risk associated with not holding Bitcoin. So you need to consider, these different aspects. And again, the reason why I'm so, I talk so much about Bitcoin is because it is the market mover. We'll come to a time when Bitcoin makes a run at 20K and the rest of the market's going to sit still and watch what happens. We're going to come to another time, I think, where Bitcoin takes a run at 100K and the rest of the market is going to sit still and watch what happens. You don't want to be missing out on these moves by having 90% of your portfolio in 37 different altcoins. This is just not, in general, not a smart move. Potentially you get lucky and you strike gold, and if you're able to do that, congratulations. But if you're looking for a more systematic approach that is much more reliable in terms of a risk management, then certainly holding Bitcoin seems to be like a better deal in a, say, like a risk-reward ratio. Because if Bitcoin is moving, it doesn't mean other coins are. But if other coins are, it's likely because Bitcoin already moved. So just hold on to that information. I want to remind you that if you want to join the premium list, you can do so. You can find it at intothecryptoverse.com. I'll just show you the website. So here we are, intothecryptoverse.com. You'll get access to a weekly report, and it's not just me, talking about my feelings for the week. It's basically a lot of updated risk metrics for some different coins. We look at a few different models. Each week we have a special topic. For instance, this last week was what is, historically speaking, the best day to buy Ethereum. The one before that was for Bitcoin. The one before that was talking about dynamically dollar cost averaging. So each week now we tend to have a new theme, and these themes are, sometimes like suggested by the community. Sometimes it's just what I decide to do that week. But again, if you want to join that, then come check out the premium newsletter, and it's $49 a month if you want to sign up. If you want a discount on that, you can pay with cryptocurrency and get 5 or 10% off. If you pay for 6 or 12 months, you can only pay for 6 or 12 months with crypto. But if you do, you'll obviously get a discount. In addition to the weekly report, you'll also get a weekly video that goes with the report. And by having this combo, it allows people who want something to print off or to just read on their screen, they can have that. And then for those people who would prefer to just kind of pull the report up and then watch me talk through it, that's an option as well. I want to remind you that I do have a private Telegram group. We have a public group, so if you want to join the public group, you can find the information for that in the description below. If you want to join the private group, I'll remind you that it's going to be capped at 250 people. So, I was watching it grow. It's grown significantly over the last several weeks. We're currently at just over 200 members. But it gets to the point where you can't continue to make introductions every single day and bring people up to speed every single day in the chat. And this just wouldn't be really useful for anyone if it ends up growing to say like 1,000 people, because then you can't really keep up with anything. Everyone's always just joining. So I'm capping it at 250, which means around another 40 people or so can join. So if you want to join, then make sure you sign up soon, because once we get to the 250 mark, I'm not going to be advertising that group again. The only way that, at that point the only way I could even foresee other people coming in is if some people were to leave at some point, and then maybe I would send out a special invite to someone who's subscribed to the channel, but it's not going to be something I continue to advertise on YouTube. So remember, if you want to join, we're currently at 210 people. It's going to be capped at 250, so that we can essentially go through this market cycle, together, and everyone's up to speed, and we don't have to make introduction after introduction, explain things every single time. So if you want to join it before that happens, I imagine we'll hit that number in the next few days. If Telegram's not your thing, then it's not a big deal. If you don't care about the private chat room, you can always just sign up for the newsletter anytime. So obviously that's not closing down. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope looking at things from, say, like what a fair valuation of Bitcoin, what does it look like? Remember, we could go below the fair valuation of Bitcoin. It's currently at around $8,000. It doesn't mean we can't go to the lower part of that regression band. That's possible. We'll see what happens. But remember, the fair valuation of Bitcoin, if this is correct, at the next halving, will likely be about 5 times higher than it currently is. So looking around, maybe around $40,000 to $50,000. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Remember to subscribe. Remember to give the video a thumbs up, leave a comment, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.